Holbrook's first full foam paddle line drops on February 12th, and after testing all four models, two of them stand out in ways most foam paddles don't. The hybrid and Widebody deliver performance that punches above their shape categories while keeping swing weight manageable. The engineering intent is clear. Dual density foam positioned strategically across the face, with cutouts at the top to manage swing weight, and a Kevlar carbon fiber layup for the surface. But here's what matters. You need to understand how these paddles engage the ball because the timing is a little different than typical foam builds. Full disclosure, Holbrook sent me these paddles to test with no strings attached, no money changed hands, I'm not obligated to create content for them, and these are my honest impressions. The Fuze lineup retails for around $229. You can grab them at holbrookpickleball.com and use code MPB to save 10% at checkout, which also helps to support this channel. Let's start with what Holbrook actually built here. The Fuze is their first full foam paddle lineup, and the construction is where the story starts. The core is a dual density foam build using EPP foam as the primary material with an EVA band surrounding the structure. Here's the interesting part. The foam isn't uniform. Holbrook positioned lower density foam toward the lower portion of the face and higher density foam up higher. That's the same multi-density tuning concept they executed with the Armas. They basically translated that approach into foam, and that's intentional tuning. They've also added two linear voids near the top of the paddle, basically cutouts designed to reduce head heaviness and keep swing weight down. The surface is a Kevlar carbon fiber layup with a peel ply texture thermoformed together. The engineering intent is pretty clear when you think about it. With composite paddles, you get instant feedback and crisp feel, but sometimes that crispness can feel harsh. With softer foam, you get comfort or some plushness, but you can lose responsiveness. Holbrook split the difference. By using dual density foam, they're trying to give you enough compliance in the lower face to absorb impact and let the ball sit briefly while keeping enough responsiveness and feel. And those cutouts at the top, that's keeping the swing weight manageable so you're not dragging the paddle through the zone. Let me walk you through the measured specs quickly. I'll put the detailed numbers on the screen, but here's what matters. The elongated 14mm is the speed option at 7.7 ounces with a swing weight of 109.1 and twist weight of 5.7. It's the lightest and fastest in the lineup. The elongated 16mm is the heavier elongated at 8 ounces with a swing weight of 117.95, notably more stable than the 14mm. The hybrid 16mm comes in at 7.98 ounces with a swing weight of 113.1, very manageable for a hybrid. And the Widebody 16mm at 8.1 ounces has a twist weight of 7.2, the most stable variant in the lineup. All the detailed performance numbers, serve speeds, punch volley speed, spin RPM, firepower scores are on the screen for you to compare across the variants. Okay, so the specs paint a picture, but here's what it actually felt like to play with these paddles. I started with the elongated 16mm, and the first thing I noticed was how the ball sits into the face. The ball compresses into the foam, and you feel it stay engaged for a beat before it exits. That took some adjustment. My first few games, I was catching the ball slightly longer than I expected, and my launch angles were off. Once I adjusted to how the ball compresses and releases, the pocketing became an advantage. I could shape shots more intentionally because the ball stayed engaged long enough for the face angle to matter. The softer contact made extended rallies easier. There's less shock on your hand compared to stiffer composite builds. The adjustment period wasn't universal, though. Some friends adapted immediately and liked it right away, while others needed a few games to get comfortable. Either way, once you understand how the foam engages the ball, it just works. The elongated 14mm is a different animal. It's faster, lighter, more explosive on compact shots. But with the twist weight at 5.7, there's a narrower tolerance for where contact lands on the face. In my testing, I noticed the response was tighter when I caught it dead center, considerably less forgiving when I was off center, especially up high on the face in my playing. If you're flushing your shots, it feels incredible. If you're catching it high or off center, it's a bit more jarring. The hybrid 16mm is where things got really interesting, and it was my favorite shape. It swings noticeably quicker than the elongated 16mm. That lighter swing weight makes a real difference. The feedback is a touch stiffer, a touch more hollow, but the response is immediate, from baseline drives to kitchen flicks. At the net, the pop is legit. Punch volleys have very good pace. One thing I kept noticing, it's light stock, and it benefits from some added weight, but it doesn't need it. I experimented with a few grams of weight on the lower corners and on top, and the stability, control, and put-away power improved noticeably. It's not mandatory, but it's worth considering if you're the type who tweaks their setup. Now, the Widebody 16mm. This is the most statistically interesting paddle in the lineup, and it plays different than a typical standard shape. The power is there. Serve speed that ranks higher than about 87% of standard paddles isn't subtle, but it's not lazy power. You still feel the ball compress and release. The difference is the paddle is more forgiving when you're not perfect on your swing. That higher twist weight makes off-center hits feel stable. And the smoother surface means you're getting spin from how the core loads and releases, not from extreme texture bite. The control score, that's a beta metric I calculate based on firepower, swing weight, twist weight, balance point, and core thickness, sits at 61 for the Widebody. That's a good score, but a touch lower than typical standard paddles, and it makes sense. This isn't a control-oriented touch paddle. It's a power-forward standard shape with firepower and strong stability. The score reflects that this paddle has output and forgiveness over easy touch and maneuverability. Across all four variants, the engineering is consistent. You need to feel the ball engage the face and understand the timing. Once you work with it, the consistency improves. And the spin numbers, which stayed average across the board despite varying surface roughness, tell you Holbrook engineered this right. Spin isn't coming from extreme surface texture bite. It's coming from how the ball engages the face and how the core loads and releases during contact. The defining characteristic across the Fuze lineup: high output from compression and rebound, not from stiffness. The foam absorbs impact, lets the ball sit briefly, then releases. The foam is more forgiving on miss hits because the foam absorbs some of that penalty, but you still get competitive spin and output. I do think the hybrid and Widebody are the standouts relative to their competition. The hybrid delivers firepower higher than 87% of hybrid paddles while keeping swing weight at 113.1. That's punching above its weight class. The Widebody is stable, powerful, and generates solid spin while offering forgiveness on mishits. Those are meaningful advantages over typical hybrid and standard offerings that usually force you to choose between output and manageability. I think the elongateds are a bit more niche, relatively speaking. The 14mm is for players who want the fastest, most explosive response on shorter strokes and don't mind a narrower sweet spot. The 16mm is for players who prefer softer, smoother contact and want a more planted feel through the shot. The hybrid 16mm is the one where tuning showed some real results. Adding a few grams of weight on the lower corners and just a little bit on top, nothing complex, noticeably improves stability and control feel. It's not a fix for something broken. It's an optional improvement that moves the paddle from very good to dialed in. In the foam paddle space, the Fuze competes with paddles like the Enhanced Duo, Honolulu Pickleball J2, and J6 CR. Where it differentiates is in the hybrid and Widebody shapes specifically. Both the hybrid and Widebody deliver above average firepower. At $229, the Fuze is positioned as a premium foam option. It's higher than most Gen 4 builds, but the hybrid and Widebody performance backs that positioning if you're looking for a shape that outperforms its typical category. The Fuze lineup is ideal for players who want high output from a foam build without harsh contact feel. This lineup is highly maneuverable with a consistent feel across the face and forgiveness that varies by shape. The hybrid swings light while delivering above average power, good if you want to attack and stay quick. The elongateds are a bit more niche. The 16mm for players who prefer softer, smoother contact, and the 14mm appeals to players looking for a punchy edge. These paddles are not for players who want instant, stiff, crisp feedback with zero timing adjustment. If you dislike any launch angle learning curve, or if you want a standard shape primarily for touch and reset ease, you might struggle. The deciding factor: are you willing to spend a couple sessions understanding how the ball engages the face? If yes, the Fuze is worth it. So that's it. That's the Holbrook Fuze review. This is a well-engineered foam line that delivers its best output and separation in the hybrid and Widebody, but only if you're willing to adapt to how it plays. The hybrid and Widebody are standouts relative to their competition. They deliver performance in their shape categories that most paddles don't. I think the elongateds are more specific to certain player preferences, but they're solid if you know what you're looking for. I do recommend the Fuze. They're genuinely good paddles with thoughtful engineering around how foam performs. Remember, you can grab these for 10% off with code MPB at holbrookpickleball.com on February 12th. If you found this helpful, hit that like button and subscribe for more pickleball stuff just like this. And hey, if you've played the Fuze or you're thinking about picking one up, let me know which model in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.